you doing? She wants the outside world.
Hey, Lucy.
There's actually a window behind me. This is not a brick wall. I fooled ya! Yeah, no, you knew that. You knew that. You probably knew that. Oh, she's trying to probably get out. No! We decided we weren't having enough fun. So. Cheers.
Hey. Oh.
I've already had one of these, okay? I'm not going to tell you what this is. It's grape juice. It's grape juice.
We might as well just be like Jake Monroe and just drink it straight from the fucking bottle.
Welcome, guys. Nice to see you for another episode of the Black Dahlia Twins podcast. I'm Quinn.
I'm Shelby.
And we're going to get into something a little more gruesome than we're normally into.
Because why not? Because we're a little messed up.
A little bit. But
Mainly me. But we all know this. People who know me personally all know this.
We do it with the best intention, guys. We know and we want you to know because education is everything. So.
Torture!
Ah!
Torture. One of my favorite subjects that I can actually talk about in great detail and be completely unfazed while everybody else is like, remind me not to cross you in the wrong way.
Yeah, you've thought about this way too much. You've been talking about it for weeks, which is exactly why our subject this week is torture!
Yeah.
We're making one little girl's dream very happy right now. So it's safe to say that torture has been around for like millennium, right? Like millenniums.
Millenniums, you know.
And like a lot of it, I mean, because it's like done kind of in secret or like in their own little fungeons, as we like to call them. There's not much documented on the subject, is there?
There's a lot of the techniques and everything out there, but not a whole lot of origin stories.
So actually, it could be funny or safe to say that a lot of the techniques that you're talking about that we know a lot of, that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, shh, calm down, were probably done for thousands of years.
Oh.
Probably.
If not a few hundred.
Yeah. Because you would think there's only so much you can do to the human body, right? Right? Right?
There's also the mind.
Guys, when she put me on this research project, I'm sorry, my brain is just exploding right now with how many techniques that you can do to torture someone. There's so much. Even just reading about it, you're almost questioning if this is like a fairy tale.
Sci-fi.
You know.
Saw.
Something. Yeah. Oh, God. I'm sorry. Triggered. We're going to talk about that later. Oh, God, there's so much.
Way too much.
Oh my gosh, guys.
It makes me giddy.
We could do almost like an entire series, but at that point, I think the FBI would eventually start knocking at our door, wondering what kind of establishment we're running. Let's not. We don't want to be put on the radar. What is the earliest known kind of torturing that we know of today?
Well, when I think of, like, if I was to think, other than knowing the research that I know now, if I was to think of, earliest form of torture would be, like, you know, how they would stretch them or whatever, or waterboarding. But waterboarding to me wouldn't be too old, but the stretching would be one that comes to mind, or disembowelment. Disembowelment was a big one. But you usually died from that one.
Oh my gosh. See, guys, there are levels to torture. So there's the kind of torture that's like almost instantaneous death, like degutting or something like that.
Disembowelment.
Right? Disembowelment.
Disembowelment.
And then there are like medium tortures where like it's gonna kill you when they do it, but it's gonna take a while for you to die.
Which almost seem like the worst ones.
Yes. Until you reach the third one, which is they're just completely hurting you so bad that you wish you were dead.
But you're not.
But you're not, and you're not gonna. With the way that they torture you. Yeah, that brings a whole new meaning too. I begged for death, you know, when they did these things.
Tickle torture.
What?
Tickle torture.
Tickle torture. Oh, that's one of my favorite not favorites. If you've ever been a child, and an adorable child, by the way. See these dimples? See those dimples? The cutest laugh. Oh, you are subjected to tickle torture.
I literally had a 6-pack when I was like 7, because my sister would tickle me so much. I would tell her, "Okay, stop. Okay, go again." She'd be like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "But you're just gonna tell me to stop." I know, but go ahead, because it was funny to me, and I liked laughing, and it was like a little endorphin high at like a young child, and I'd have to tell her to stop because after a while, it gets a little painful.
It does. You've gotten the good side of tickle then, because your sister actually stopped.
Sometimes. You know how older siblings are.
Try always having it tickled to you to the point where like you're like peeing your pants and you're like
one time
you're in so much pain that you almost want to punch your adult, but you know you can't because you'll just get in trouble. That's torture.
That's the real torture, when you can't get revenge.
It's okay. I lived. I prevailed. That's why I drink a lot of grape juice.
Fermented grape juice.
Good. Good times. So when it comes to torture, we've been doing it for millennia, but most of the time when we do it, it is either for one of two reasons. Do you know what those reasons are?
To get information?
To get information, for an enemy, things like that, or
execution.
Execution or punish, just to punish somebody for something that they have done that is bad, that is considered against the law at the time, or just straight up revenge. Back when there were no laws, if you did something to someone that they didn't like, they would find you and they would basically just seek their own vengeance on you. It wasn't until about the medieval times that we started actually more or less recording what kind of tortures that we've inflicted on people. The evolution state of torture transpired more in the medieval times.
They made a spectacle of it.
They did. To show everyone in the kingdom or
village or what have you,
the whole country, that if you commit these crimes or any crime, that this is what could happen to you. And that was the first step to them trying to prevent crime back in Britain.
Sir Wallace? William Wallace? He was a Scottish dude, and because he was fighting for Scotland's freedom, he got disemboweled and drawn and quartered as in form of execution, but it was still torture because, I mean, you literally watched your intestines get ripped out of your abdomen and then each one of your limbs got pulled by a horse until you ripped apart. And then got put on display all over Britain. Or even the stretching was also being drawn and could be drawn and quartered as if you got stretched hard enough.
On a lighter note, everyone has seen in any, like, old, like, I don't know, witch movie or peasant movie or, like, back in the old, like, medieval times, people that were strapped to a piece of wood.
Oh, yeah, the little locks, the wooden locks.
That binded your hands together, and sometimes neck. Sometimes it was just the hands, but it would also go around your neck, and you were forced to stand in front of everybody as a spectacle.
Like the town square. To put give it an example.
Your
town square.
Yeah, you're almost known as a town fool. Like, people would just, like, throw cabbage at you, like, whatever.
Tomatoes, spit on you, throw horse crap at you.
People didn't think it was, like, really that bad. Like, it's just more embarrassing, right?
Yeah,
this was known as a
humiliation.
Known as a time of humiliation tactics for punishment. But imagine standing for, like, a week straight in that position. I thought about it myself, and I immediately was like, I probably would get so tired that in the middle of the night I'd fall asleep, and then I'd end up, like, strangling myself to death because I'm so tired that I can't keep myself up anymore.
I'm sure that probably actually happened once or twice, and it just was never actually recorded.
Probably. I'm one of them. Sorry, past lives. They accused me of being a witch. Maybe I was.
Speaking of witches,
yes,
a form of torture that they would put on accused witches or adulterers, homosexuals, or, liars and blasphemers was the pair of anguish. Do you know what the pair of anguish is?
Tell them.
Oh, the pair of anguish was a medieval form of torture, circa 1600s.
No kidding.
Yeah, and it was usually a device made of iron, but there's also been mentions of it appearing in the 19th century. But the instrument usually consisted of hard metals like iron, or I don't know, probably lead at that time. I'm sure they weren't afraid of using lead. Consisted of 4 leaves that you would spin a screw that would slowly open them, which we will show a picture right here on the screen. Sorry if I block Quinn's beautiful face.
No, it's okay. I'm looking.
It is a mess.
That almost looks like something like what the gynecologist would, like, shove up your us.
But with this, though, turning the key opened the leaves, causing massive internal damage. It was an extremely painful device used to punish women accused of inducing...
I felt like I was being punished in the gynecologist's office. Jeez! I could only imagine that thing actually
the little duckbill. The duckbill is one thing.
But then...
the leaf that's... it's like a... It was a punishment used mostly on women accused of inducing miscarriage. It was also used for liars and blasphemers, and also homosexuals.
I'm sorry, the first thing that comes to mind is... did they use the same device and not wash it?
Oh, it was very common for them not to wash it. And it caused a lot of infections. A lot of people wouldn't necessarily die from the torture itself, but they would die from the infections that it caused, because hygiene was not a big thing in medieval times.
Sorry, my brain just immediately went to never go ass to mouth.
But could you imagine having that thing
No!
in your mouth when you know that probably a week ago it was put in someone's...
Nope. Mm-mm. Don't say it. Don't you dare say it. Yeah.
Another form of torture that I think would come to most people's minds is rats, where they would put an iron box up to your stomach and then heat it, and so when the rat's trying to escape from the heat, they would burrow into your stomach and chew you and eat you and...
I've heard of something like that, actually. Like, before researching any of this. That sounds horrific.
Sounds extremely painful, and I would prefer not to have that one done on me. I love rats. I love them.
That means you wouldn't want them to turn against you.
Meaning, I just wouldn't want to be freaking eaten alive. Thank you very much. I'm good. But, I mean, I can handle getting tattoos, but that just sounds...
So, there's another form of torture that just, unfortunately, keeps popping up on the internet. And I can't... Yes, pun intended.
I like this one, though. It's not my favorite.
But...
Woo!
So good! So it's called the Judas Cradle? If I'm pronouncing that correctly?
If it's what I think it is.
Yeah.
What, we're gonna pop it up, right here? Right over my face? Because why not? Judas Cradle. Because all its lovely glory.
Yeah. It is what it looks like. Oh, sorry, not Shelby.
The picture.
So, as it looks like, they would tie you up above this pyramid-shaped impaler, and they would slowly lower you down with your anus or vagina, if you're a woman, right on top of the little tip, and it would just slowly but surely impale you. And to make sure you didn't fall asleep during the matter, they would keep tying the ropes tighter around certain pressure point areas on your body to keep you awake.
Or put more weight at your feet to weigh you down, because I've heard that they would actually have weights on your feet in other...
They would do that with another form of torture too. But they would actually use the weight thing for the feet, and there's something called the Spanish donkey. Horses. So they would bend you over this and slowly lower you down on it, and they would put weights on your feet to help with pulling you down, because your body weight isn't enough for this thing. Even though it's got sharp edges coming out of it, like you see here, it's not enough for it to really rip you apart with your body weight. So they would put weights on your feet to make it so it would eventually tear you through your entire body.
Lovely.
Yeah, that's great, right?
Well, I mean, I've been on some comfortable seats, saddles, horses, But that just...
Shut up!
Thank you, helicopter from Joint Base Lewis McChord, I am assuming. Shaking the whole damn house.
I like where this is going, though. So we're going to go back and forth on what your favorite torture is and what my favorite torture is. And if your favorite torture matches my favorite torture that I'm going to say next, then I have to come up with a different torture that I think of next to say. On that note, what is your next favorite torture?
Escapism!
I'm scared. Anything that is this woman's favorite torture, please be afraid.
Escapism. It's my favorite. And it's really messed up.
Alright, please do tell.
So, escapism. ancient Persian form of torture that killed victims with milk and honey.
Mother Nature, guys.
Mother Nature. So the deranged mind, or minds, they came up with this scaphism, a torture method also known as the boats, which I'll elaborate on here in a little bit.
Elaborate on.
Elaborate on. I will elaborate on here in a little bit.
What's did is done.
What's did is done.
Redneck Buddha, guys.
Redneck Buddha, man. So it was a torture known as the boats that originated in the Persian Empire around the 5th century BC. So this actually predates medieval. So it's been around for quite some time, guys. It was devised to inflict as much pain and discomfort as possible for as long as the victim remained alive.
So what they would call basically a hell before death?
Yeah. It was usually reserved for the people guilty of the worst crimes, for instance, murder.
Okay.
Or treason. I mean, I would throw sex offenders in there too, but that's just my personal opinion. So the method consisted of trapping the victim in the space between the two boats or hollowed out trees. And they were force-fed milk and honey over the course of a few days until the person died.
So, doesn't milk and honey attract a lot of bugs?
Well, not only does that getting all over your face and the rest of everything else, they would also, on top of force feeding you milk and honey, which would give you severe diarrhea, they would also cover your body in honey.
Wait, okay, and you can't go anywhere.
No, they put you in like a swamp or like stagnant water.
What happens when you eat things, you eventually have to...
No, you would defecate into the hollowed out canoes or the boats. And that would also attract the bugs and the rodents on top of all the honey you're covered in. And you can only imagine,
No, I've stopped imagining at this point.
The most famous victim of the boats was a young Persian soldier by the name of... I believe I'm correcting... Probably not pronouncing this right.
Never.
Mithridates, who died around 401 BC. He was sentenced to die because he accidentally killed Cyrus the Younger. He was unlucky enough to survive 17 days in the boats. So every day he was being force-fed milk and honey. So you wouldn't die of dehydration or starvation because obviously you're getting some form of sustenance to at least keep you alive. It was the fact of you sitting in your own feces and possibly sitting in the bog or in the sun, open to the elements basically. You'd wait for bugs, vermin, mice, rats, possibly bears, because why the hell not? Start eating the honey and the milk that you're covered in, and then eventually start taking nibbles and bigger nibbles. And you usually die of dehydration and septic shock. Because, yay for sepsis. 17 days! But that is my favorite form of torture because I would totally do this to somebody. As messed up as that is, I would do it to somebody.
So you know that saying, I wouldn't even wish this upon my worst enemy?
Oh, I wish this upon my worst enemy.
If you are this woman's worst enemy, I am scared for you right now.
And like I said, if government infrastructure comes to a screeching halt, which it probably will here in the next 20-ish years.
You gotta watch for that because I really want one.
I kind of do. World's going to shit, guys. Just admitting that. It's going to shit. Especially America.
We've been going to shit for a while, guys. Ever since we got our independence. The next form of torture. And the thing is, it's not necessarily my next favorite form of torture, but I just want to mention it because I learned something. And it was like when you have like two different facts that you've learned, right? And then you realize they both like go together. And then like a puzzle piece in your brain like connected. Oh. And then it just changes your whole like
perspective
on that fact that you have known for so long. So, a fact that I've learned for so long. The mafia, when they mentioned to other people that were like talking too much or like they were about to get offed, like they would say somewhat along the lines of, "You'll be swimming with the fishes." You've heard of that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know where that came from?
No.
I learned this recently, and that's where that like moment came in.
The two puzzle pieces. Wrong hand, but okay.
I know, whatever. So, what they would do to these men, those
narcs,
those poor men, they would put what they called cement shoes on them.
Okay, yes. Now I know what you're talking about.
And they would throw them in the ocean, and they would sink to the bottom, and they would drown to death, basically swimming with the fishes.
But I am also a slight skeptic about that form of execution, because how would somebody be knocked out long enough for the cement to actually set?
I more or less think mobster style, and they just had like some goons right next to him, like with guns saying, "Don't move."
Or every time he came to, they just knocked him out again, which would probably just give him more concussions. But that's okay, they're trying to kill him anyways.
Mm-hmm. They want to prove a point. They want him to at least be somewhat alive when they do this weird torture to them. Yeah, that's one of my next favorites.
But what is your favorite? Kind of. Not really.
That's not what I was thinking of when I was thinking of Saw. God, I hope I don't get demonetized, but okay, this right here.
We're probably getting demonetized for that.
This
one.
loveliness right here. It's a drawing. Shh, everyone.
Learn how to blur out just a certain part.
Nope. Gonna show it all off. This is what I was thinking of when if you guys are Saw fans at all and you've watched any of the Saw series, I think it was like a Saw 5 or something like that, where in order to get through, they had to like put their hands through like a blade, and then the blade would like go right through their hands and it would like draw enough blood to open the door. Well, because they didn't have enough people at the end, it had to end up sawing through a little bit more than they should have and making it split right down the middle. Now, imagine that right down, and it starts at your most sensitive spots of your body. Yeah. And the reason why they would do this, do you know why they would do this upside down? Like they would start with that.
Blood flow.
Exactly. The blood would flow
so
straight to your head, which would keep you alive longer while they saw through your body that way.
Drop in blood pressure wouldn't be that noticeable to your brain, so therefore... Oh.
You'd probably get about, like, halfway or right through the stomach up to the chest before you died.
Before you went into shock and died from shock.
And I've heard some people, like, because it's so painful, they go into shock, but then they like immediately come out of shock right before death and realize what's happening before they die.
Shock is a funny thing because you don't realize what's actually going on. You're just like, oh, I just don't feel very good.
So that was called saw torture. Hence the name, obviously. I mean, what's being done?
May we bring it back and calm it down a little bit. Instead of doing physical torture, how about we do a form of, like, mental torture here for a second?
Okay.
This one's called white torture. I'm not going to elaborate too much in detail. I know this one's a fairly recent form of torture within the last 30, 40 years, probably. So white torture consisted of putting someone in a white room with no windows. They put you in white clothes. They feed you white food on white plates with white utensils. The soldiers outside of the door are wearing specialized white shoes that muffle their footsteps, so you are literally getting sensory deprivation. She'll put a picture up here, I'm sure, of a completely white room. Could you imagine being locked in there for days and or weeks? After a while, you would lose all sense of time and possibly mental capacity. Therefore, I personally, if we're going on forms of torture that we would not want to happen to us, this would probably be the form I would not want to happen.
So there was one.
What is your personal favorite? We never talked about that one.
It doesn't come up anywhere, but Curtis helped me find it. He's such a good boyfriend. Love you, babe. No, wait. You're gonna get an idea of what I'm telling you.
What the fuck? What the what the fuck? What the fuck was that? That looked horrible. That looked horrible.
Thank you, Curtis. I found this through you. Can't seem to find it anywhere else. So you would put the man's penis and the balls through that. And you would heat it to a red hot first, then put it on. If the spikes weren't good enough. And then they would rip it off. Basically the same as the breast rippers. What are they called?
The breast ripper, yeah, that's what it was called. It was a weird device that she'll also probably put up right here.
Yeah, here's the breast ripper right here.
They would also heat that up to a red hot, and they would put that around the breast, and the spikes would go in, and then they would rip it, and it's pretty self-explanatory, and it does not sound very fun.
I'm just glad they weren't sexist and they made a man's version.
And this was your favorite form?
Okay, so when you say favorite, there's a bunch of different versions of favorite you could say. This is my most interesting that you don't come across. I'm into unique tortures, okay? So this is the most interesting. Is it something that I would want on my worst enemy? No. Wait. What kind of worst enemy do I have? No. Okay, no. No. Never mind.
Maybe a little bit.
Never mind.
No.
But yeah, it's definitely something that makes you cringe, and I like seeing people cringe, and I think that's the real main reason why I like that form of torture. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
I just like making people feel uncomfortable. Not necessarily want to torture them. You're like, I'm on the torture side, really? Yeah, so that's one of my favorites on that kind of level. Disturbing. Okay? I will tell you my favorite form of actual torture, like I would actually do unto somebody if they really made me that mad. You know who that was for.
A few people come to mind actually with that one.
Just don't cross me, guys. It's something that you've mentioned before, and you haven't really mentioned it as one of your top, because I understand why. Like, it sounds kind of like simple. Kind of sounds like,
Not
like
exciting.
whatever, like not exciting. But honestly, like on a psychological level, this is probably one of my favorite tortures that I probably would do unto somebody, because it doesn't physically harm them. It pretty much mentally harms them. So it's called Chinese water torture.
Ah, yes, I did not elaborate on this one.
No, you didn't.
They would tie you down and literally have a drop of water hit a very sensitive part of your forehead, to the point that it would almost make you start feeling like it was actually boring a hole into your head.
That's weird. So
I
it
believe it was-
psychologically makes
Yeah,
you feel that way?
yeah,
'Cause
psychologically-
I'm sorry, that doesn't seem like torture.
After long enough, though, after hours,
Huh.
you might start to be like, okay, can I... But your head's strapped down, so you can't really move your head, so it's just...
Who thinks of this? Like, that's where my brain goes. Is like, who just sat there and was like, you know what's a really good form of torture? Drops on the forehead. Like, how did they find that out? That's my favorite / least favorite. Because how can you have a favorite torture, guys, without it being also your least favorite?
I would want to do it onto somebody, but I wouldn't want it done on me.
Exactly. Yes. She's so excited. I want to mess with your psyche and like just kind of like have you grovel throughout life as like an insignificant being.
PTSD. Do you have another one? May I have another?
May I have another, sir? All right. Well, I guess
The Blood Eagle! I
Blood-
totally...
yeah. Did you forget
a
about
lot of
that?
people know what the Blood Eagle is.
yeah. What exactly would they do?
They would slice your back open up your rib cage, pull out your lungs, and it would look like the folded wings of a bird. And it was called the Blood Eagle. A lot of Vikings did it.
Don't mess with us Vikings. Yes, I am Nordic too. I will give you a blood eagle. I'm just kidding. All right.
Oh yeah, the Brazen Bull. That's
So the
another one I like.
So the Brazen Bull, weirdly enough, okay, so it's touch and go. History, somewhere, scholars, I don't know, were basically questioning on whether or not this torture was actually done. So who knows if this was just an idea that someone concocted back in ancient Greek. So they would make a iron bowl, or just basically a bowl made out of metal, and they would have it would be a hollowed out bowl, and they would have a opening, and I'll show you right here, little opening on the side of the bowl, and you would place the said torture victim inside, and underneath you would light a fire, and the bowl would start to heat up.
The bowl would start to heat up. Basically, what the victim's cries would come out of the mouth that was basically a chimney for the hot belly of this brazen bull. And the screams would almost sound like a very mad cow or bull.
Because they
screaming,
actually...
and there'd be smoke, and it does not sound very fun. Oh, the Swedish drink. The Swedish drink. That one sounds absolutely atrocious. So between 1618 and 1648, the Swedish soldiers and mercenaries didn't receive any pay for fighting for their lords. Instead, they were told they could loot and plunder the regions they marched through, thus making life pretty crappy for non-combatants.
Was that a pun?
Speaking of crappy...
That was a pun.
It was a pun. The Swedish drink method involved forcing the victim to drink dangerous amounts of foul manure, urine, excrement, what have you, thus making the stomach bloat up to painful levels. But if that wasn't enough...
Was that enough?
If the victims didn't answer the interrogator's questions, they'd stomp on their tummies and run horses over them. So, just...
For some reason, when you said tummies, it lightened the blow.
tummies. Tum-tums.
Tum-tum.
Gotta be careful with the tum-tums.
Tum-tum. I think that's pretty bad.
That one's... Yeah, when I read about that one, I was like, oh God, no, I don't want to be force-fed.
When it comes to torture, it's all on preference. So, what tortures you might not be the same as what tortures me. Which then, that's why humans started to have to get creative on what torture was. And that's why there's so many versions of torture today. Because there's certain things that are a bit worse for certain people than others. And weirdly enough for me, I would rather get physically tortured than have to eat excrement or, things like that. Yeah.
I'd rather be mentally tortured and physically tortured before I had to be force-fed something like that. So guys, as always, please like, subscribe, comment, hit that bell icon so you can be notified every time we post a new video.
And soon we will be posting videos or little tiny short videos on Shelby and me. A little bit about ourselves. And generally what this podcast is about and where we're going to start directing our attention on.
Maybe we'll have a couple reaction videos, but that probably won't come until a little later down the road. So I'd love to start doing vlogs of small little adventures. Alright guys, I'm Shelby.
I'm Quinn.
And have a great night, day, evening, whatever part of the world you are in. As our favorite YouTuber says, it was a great day because I made it a great day. Have a good guys.
Thank you guys. Bye. I think you're getting better.
I'm getting better.
Initially when you start. Yeah, I think you're
still not great, but
it's there.
Little ghost story for us. So
okay.
Thank you, Meg, for this. We appreciate it. Keep them coming. I know you said you had more. We would love to hear more. So without further ado, here it is. She says, I used to work at an assisted living home. Graveyard shift. One of my favorite residents had passed away earlier that day. At the same time of night that she always came down the hall, I heard her footsteps and walker squeaking, and the noise stopped by her favorite chair and table she used to sit at. I told her goodbye and that I missed her, and I never heard the footsteps again. So it's a nice little wholesome, sweet ending to the absolute gorish, horrible podcast we just had.
I like wholesome after gruesome.
Wholesome after gruesome, guys. It was sweet. Thank you, Meg, for that. That was actually very sweet. But that's okay. You got me a
What? No, I didn't. I was just rubbing you because I love you.
Oh. You got me
That was an reaction.